So, probably worth starting with saying some people in chat will be familiar, some people here will be familiar, but some people will not. What is Until Dawn the game? It is the quintessential movie game, of which there are many in the genre, and some are better than others. Until Dawn, I think, is particularly awful, but once again,
but it's particularly well regarded.
Very well
in
regarded,
the realm
yes.
of movie games, because movie games in this case is like the games that Quantic Dream makes, like Heavy Rain or Detroit Become Human. That kind of game is what Until Dawn is.
But like like Little Hope, that was way worse than Until Dawn.
Oh.
But Until Dawn is way worse than some of the better games in the genre, and then the whole genre itself is very controversial to a lot of people who think the gaming industry is fucking dying. Like they see these games as examples of destroying all of it because mechanics had taken a back seat. They have done now for I don't know, 2 decades. It feels like drawing, like further and further. It's been a gradual process of instead of being surprised and interested by mechanics as games come out, you get more and more of them taken away.
More of a desire to become movies, more of a
cinematic experience
towards that. Which
they always say
that's fine, as long as we're not losing what makes games unique.
Well, that's the thing, right?
It is a game.
It should be welcomed as a form of art expression by any given artist to make their game the way they want to and all that sort of stuff. It's just sad because it seems to be muting a whole huge swath of what makes games so amazing, like as something that's unique to them, and you don't want that to be lost. That's the main thing. Because this conversation came up, I think, on Open Bar about how The Last of Us is seen as the game that might have killed gaming, like broadly.
I think that there's something to be said for that because it's kind of like Naughty Dog during the PlayStation 3 generation, because like Uncharted obviously had aspirations to be like but like the pitch for that would be, it's like a playable, summer blockbuster. It's like, well, there's a bit of a difference between that and like a movie game in terms of what you're describing. Because, like, Uncharted still got mechanics and stuff. And to be fair, so does The Last of Us. But it does feel like ever since The Last of Us, particularly Sony, is only interested in making games that are starting to fit that mold of being big-budget, cinematic, third-person action-adventure games to various degrees of success and quality. Obviously, I think, we would contend that God of War is considerably more mechanically complex than something like The Last of Us.
That's not even close.
Or what better,
and that Until Dawn, for instance, is on the opposite end of that in terms of being like the least mechanically complex of the kind of games that Sony.
All you can do,
Sony published in this case,
in Until Dawn is press buttons or move sticks to make choices to let different cutscenes play based on your choices, or walk around in a very restricted area, press A to pick up item or to read item. That's about it.
Pretty much.
And you might be like, so it's not even really a game. It's like, well, that's a conversation for another time. But like,
it is interactive. It has fail states. There are mechanics technically.
When it came out, it did very well. And what I mean is like, everybody wanted to see not only play it, but to watch everyone play it, to see reactions.
I wonder how much that game benefited from being one of the... I know it's kind of funny to say, considering it came out like 2 years into the PlayStation 4's life cycle, but PlayStation 4 didn't have a lot of exclusives prior to that point. I wonder how much that helped, that it was one of the first sort of notable Sony exclusives for PlayStation 4. Because other than that, it was what? Killzone Shadowfall. I think they made Little Big Planet 3, and I feel like there was one more that came out. There was like a big notable Sony exclusive, so I wonder if that helped it. Like if it came out a few years later, if it wouldn't have. Infamous Second Son. I forget about that game sometimes, even though I really like the first two. Oh, and there was Bloodborne though. Bloodborne did come out earlier, so
Yeah.
Bloodborne didn't overshadow it though, because it's like 5 or 6 months apart.
Well,
you said the third Infamous game is called Second Son.
Yes. Okay. Don't get me started on that one. That's a game I could talk about for a while.
And Theo just said, the big thing I keep raving on about is mechanics aren't given at all consideration as a vehicle for experience to convey meaning. I just find that, like, 100% correct, but we're at the point of they don't even consider mechanics. Like, we need to get into the door. before we can even talk about using them in ways that are not necessarily conventional with the vast majority of games.
Well, you know how it went with that game. As far as they were like, yeah, we are tapping into what makes video games unique, which is that you can have like multiple endings because it's interactive.
Right.
But and that's like what the mechanics enable. It's like, yeah, you can, you make choices and then it changes how the story plays out. Not significantly, but to some extent.
They did that with. This is something you could do with books. We had choose your own adventure.
That's kind of the point, isn't it? It's like, in a sense, you're just presenting a much more sophisticated version of something that exists in other mediums of entertainment. There is nothing that actually precludes like films and television shows from doing what Until Dawn does. They just wouldn't have the parts where you have to make the character walk around or examine an object.
Which gets really fucking tedious, by the way. So, for those who don't know, and you can find it in the playlist on my channel, but me and Metal I played the PC re-release, he played the PS4 version on PS5 at the same time. Our plan was to try and always choose the opposite choices whenever we got the same ones, and maybe just go different directions as best we can. And holy shit, so much of the game is exactly the same no matter what you do. They just sort of...
It's kind of a consistent problem with the genre, isn't it, really?
Well, something I really don't like about it is you'll make probably, let's just say, 300 choices, and by the end of it, you'll be like, man, imagine like all those other playthroughs you could do, and then the game will be like, if you go again, you might just be able to save these people instead of these people, and then another friend will be like, oh yeah, my dude died here, and yours, oh wow, that's amazing. And it's like, you guys have, it's like all of the players' work to make the game seem so much better than it actually is.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, the whole game ultimately culminates in the same conclusion. It culminates with whatever characters survive ending up in the lodge, and then you got to get them all out slowly, and then you got to blow up the Wendigos. That's like the ending always, which unfortunately is kind of because Heavy Rain is a meme game. Heavy Rain has multiple endings though, and it has multiple endings that also play out in the more interactive part of the game. Depending on which characters survive, dramatically changes the character interactions during the ending sequence. And the ways that it can end are much more numerous than in something like Until Dawn, where really the only difference is which characters survived and which characters kind of like or dislike each other by the end.
Jason.
Yeah, I do like Heavy Rain. I gotta tell you,
that's fair. I've never played it. I just know the memes.
Yeah.
So that's the mechanical take on Until Dawn, but what's the story? What is the story that was so sort of enticing that they decided to do this with it? Well,
it must have been really good.
It won't take long to say. I'll just kind of do it broadly. It's a group of friends.
Simple story.
Go to I forget what mountains are there, but it's like a getaway lodge place that's owned by one of the... there's like a...
Lodge Mountain, yeah.
Rami Malek and his two twin sisters' family, I think, own the place. All the friends are there. It's going great. But one of them fancies one of the other guys, and they play a little trick on her to bully her while recording, just to see if she'll go to kiss him or something when she has the chance, or just fuck with her. And she gets really upset and runs outside. Her twin sister tries to find her, and basically they both go missing. The reality is that they both fell off a cliffside because they were terrified by something, and we'll get back to that in a sec. But anyway, it was a tragedy. They were all very hit with trauma by it, and Rami Malek he went kind of nuts as a result of this, which we don't know at first. He invites them all back, I think a year later or something, and he wants to, just, hey man, we're all friends, let's just party and try and remember them in a good way and blah, blah, blah. But secretly, he's going to set some spooky traps for them to spook them all, scare them all, and make them feel how they made his sister feel. He wants to get some revenge. He's got himself a serial killer persona. He's going to, chase people around the house and do all kinds of scary things with setups and remotes, different security cameras, electronic devices. He just wants to scare. Simultaneously, there are Wendigos in the mountain that are actually a threat, are actually monsters. There's a guy with a flamethrower who looks serial killer-ish trying to kill the Wendigos, and the idea with the game is when you first start it, you don't know any of this, so you're just a person going through the story, and you're seeing all of these different kinds of killers, potentially, and getting spooked by all kinds of different things, to the point where the game even tries to imply there's ghost shit going on too. I thought at first that it was like a celebration of all of horror, and I was kind of interested in the idea, like trying to create a story that sort of covers each of these aspects. But I was pretty, uninterested by the time we got to the end in terms of what story it was telling, all the reveals, all the lore. And by the end, like as Fringy mentioned, most people will either die to Wendigos at the end, or throughout the game, there's some wacky fucking choices you can make that just cause the deaths of people.
Really bizarre. I remember the one. I remember the one that really threw me off was it was the part where I think it was Chris and there was some other girl. They're like putting this contraption that has like these buzz saws that are coming down. It's like, oh, you gotta either shoot yourself or shoot her. And she kept going like, no, don't do it to yourself, sacrifice me. And I'm like, okay. And then I did that. and then it's revealed that it's Blake's or whatever. And she held such a grudge that when Chris was running away from the Wendigos, she like locked the door so that he couldn't get in, and then he gets killed. And I was like, wow. This is like, you suck. Like, what the hell? I don't know why that one particularly threw me off. It's like, wow, I don't care about what happens to any of you.
One of my favorites was always they're at like a radio tower that's collapsing, and there's this moment where you have a choice because a girl is hanging on by the edge, and the boyfriend you're playing as him. It's like, do you want to try and save her or do you want to abandon her? And I think most people would just be like, well, yeah, save her. If you choose to save her, you will die, and she will live. If you choose to abandon her, you both live.
But she hates him, and that's it.
It's weird. Like, okay, that's the...
No, I know, it's because I guess the thing would be like, yeah, butterfly effect. It's like, there's something to be said for the nature of your consequences being, like, so insanely bizarre and unpredictable that it starts to get kind of weird and annoying.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that you should I don't know that there's an ironclad rule on how your choices should ultimately manifest, but generally it feels like the right way to go about it is that people have a good understanding of what the consequences of their choices will be. Namely,
it's about, intuition. What can you reasonably expect from a choice that you make, instead of something kind of coming out of left field that you couldn't have ever possibly fathomed sort of happening,
which I don't appreciate them for as a dev team. I think it's kind of just meh as like a basically being, take for example the choice of you're trying to reach someone you love to save them. You can either go the fast path or the safe path. You're like, well, I mean, the
safe one is more guaranteed to survive. The fast one is more risky, but potentially has a better outcome.
The problem, more quick time events.
Is that like the choice is hard to make because we've never seen the landscape before. But if I'm running somewhere and I know the fast way and the safe way, I'll probably go the fast way to save the person. But of course, this is a video game, so I'm just like, am I going to choose the fast way and you're just going to have me break my legs? Is that what's going to happen? Like, because I can't.
Then, the problem is that eventually, because this is a problem a lot of these games have, they eventually reveal which one characters are safe and which aren't, and Mike, that is one of them. He's safe, and so is Sam, the lead. Basically, both of them are safe. You don't really need to worry too much about how, if anything bad will happen to them, because they are protected until the end of the game, whereas everybody else is completely expendable. Which doesn't help when that's the case. You should probably try and make it such that that's not the case, that there are two obviously safe characters.
I would also just go as far as saying that when you have a game like that, it would be really rewarding if you get given multiple choices that sort of, if you know more and we're paying more attention to the landscape or the characters or their values, or just in terms of like critical thinking, what would be the sort of simultaneously fast and safe options versus the not ones, and you're rewarded for picking these things up and choosing the right decisions. But that would take ages. Like, making a game like that, it's going to be a nightmare. Actually having it all...
Yeah, it would be part of the good construction.
Now, as I understand it, Detroit Become Human has, like, an almost stunning amount of different, like, endings and paths that can be taken.
Oh, well, for the record, I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying that...
Well, I guess it's tough. It's the reason why most games have this problem with choice. I mean, Mass Effect is pretty well known at this point for the fact that a lot of the choices will lead you to the exact same place anyway.
It was a discussion Tall Biscuit had once upon a time that I've never forgotten, basically, on like why is it that we don't have games that, like, why isn't there a game that has a billion endings with a billion meaningful pathways that someone worked really hard on to create that would be a true choose your own sort of adventure. And he was just like, because the vast majority, and he's saying like 98% of players aren't even going to complete like more than one run through. It's
right, and that's all development time you gotta invest into stuff.
Yeah, it's not viable. It might be viable in like for an independent creator, but it would be absolute nightmare.
Text-based stuff.
Yeah. There's formats where you might see it crop up.
Yeah, the tabletop role-playing games is kind of like the. That's a system where one of the players is essentially the god of the universe who explains everything that happens, and if you have a good one, it really is basically someone on the fly telling you the result of all your decisions and implications and things, and that's a format you can play if you really do want that kind of game.
Well, in any case, that's the game ends with either they all die or some of them die, or I guess you can make it so that none of them die if you know exactly. Yeah. Nobody's doing that on their first fucking run, though. Like, there's so much information that you couldn't possibly account for. Yeah.
But, I mean, part of the thing as well, though, is that the game will actually essentially say, yeah, this is happening because of this choice, which feels a little bit like you shouldn't be allowed to do that. Like, see, it was this choice that got you this ending. It's like they really want you to know why this has happened for this particular character. And it's like, I don't know about that, right? Like, should you telegraph it so clearly? But it's because the butterfly effect is like a big part of that game's marketing.
Yes.
Like the game even opens like, see the butterfly effect, look at the paths. But it's such a like, okay, yeah,
well, yeah. I mean, got bisected because 2 days ago you chose Cool Ranch Doritos instead of garden salsa sun chips for a snack, and you're like, okay, game, all right.
That's the implication when you play it at first, because there are a bunch of there's like you're playing a shooting range, and there's an opportunity to shoot, I think, a bird. And the game implies, like, if you kill that bird, you are going to get fucked later on in the game.
Well, like, up there's a little logo for the butterfly whenever you make like a choice. It's basically Until Dawn's equivalent of He Will Remember That from the Telltale games. And just like in the Telltale games, it's about as, much of a lie, basically. It's like,
but
it's that too, unfortunately.
Broadly speaking, telling me it's like, ooh, we could turn this into a movie. I should be like, not that good of a story. Like, you might want to shore it up if you're going to do that.
Is the choose your own adventure aspect? That's like the main thing it's got going for it, and you're not going to be able to do that in a movie.
So they chose to, and the first thing I heard about this movie when looking into it was, it will not be like the story in the game whatsoever. Not even a lick of it. Like, you wouldn't recognize the game at all from this. It's just like, well, what's interesting, I suppose, is I don't think that's going to be controversial at all in this instance, because I don't think anybody loves the Until Dawn story. And as Fringy just brought up, I think the fun comes from the choices rather than the story.
The thing is, I'm not so sure about that. There was a lot, when the trailer came out, there was a lot of like, so it's not even like the game at all. That's lame.
I didn't see any of that. I must have missed it, because like...
Yeah, I'm not sure. I saw it on the like trailer. Like all the comments were like, "Oh, it's not like an adaptation. Like, why is it called Until Dawn? But where are the characters? Why didn't they cast like the actual actors from the games in the film?" I saw a lot of that.
That one I get.
Gave, I think I'm right in saying, is that isn't there a remake or a remaster of Until Dawn coming out? So the director, this is I think just on the Wikipedia page, but the director said because that was coming out at around the same time they were doing the movie. Nobody involved in the movie was interested in just doing the game again. And they said, the actual quote, which is still on the wiki at the moment, I think, is that because the game is just a 10-hour movie, it wouldn't have been interesting for me, the director, if we were just doing the game, because then it's going to be like a cut down, non-interactive version of the game, which just wouldn't be the same thing. They did succeed in doing something cut down, non-interactive, and not interesting.
But the thing is... I mean, what's worth considering is that like this is going to hit a whole ass audience that have no idea what the game even is.
That's true. Yeah.
Well, but I had no idea what the game even is, and I now have even less interest in finding out.
Yeah. Oh, well, what's funny is this film will lead you in like a completely wrong direction. It's not even close to what the game, which is really weird because they bait. Frankie kind of mentioned it, but the sequel bait is that they're going to do the game next time.
Yeah, because they even have there's like a folder that has like Rami Malek on like the picture, like is a picture, and that seems to be the implication. But it's like So what, is this like a prequel or something, or what? Is that what's happening?
But to get us invested in all the characters.
That sounds like a classic I want to tell my own story, by the way, which I find very amusing. Comes up so much. Instead of I'll tell the story, but I'm just going to make some corrections where it's obviously shit. I don't really have much issue with that, because especially with stories that have lots of issues. But you have to be fucking careful. Actually, on something that's like iconically, famously beloved culturally, you should probably avoid even correcting mistakes that you see. It's like it's all very complicated. Yeah, the Until Dawn story. I think if you got the actors back, assuming you could, and you can definitely shave that thing down into a 2-hour movie at worst, probably an hour and a half. I don't see why not. It's there's a lot of fluff in that game, and it's 10 hours of story. I'd just be like, I don't know if it's 10 hours of story. It's 10 hours of events, I suppose. But yeah, I would say that we're in a position where, like broadly industry-wise, gaming is like learning that they need to adapt the source is probably never going to happen, because it never happened for comics.
No, and they have a particularly, in their view, potent response to that criticism, which is that films, a game and adapting it to a film or a television show, you can't just adapt it like 1-to-1, because, that's just not possible, because they're different mediums. That's a pretty prevailing argument, which, here's the thing, there are instances where there is some validity to that, but like, not to the extent that they often deviate from the games. You don't have to deviate that significantly as they tend to. I know that a lot of people didn't like season 1 of The Last of Us, but that is one of the most faithful video game adaptations that we've got, in terms of actually hitting several prominent plot points from the original, compared to something like Halo, which didn't give a fuck about trying to match any game in any way at all. Even Season 2 doing Reach, it's like, yeah, but this ain't an adaptation of The Fall of Reach or Halo Reach. It's not even trying to do that either, so...
As Theo's just highlighted, isn't it kind of funny, too, that Until Dawn is almost a movie? It's trying to look and feel like a movie. It's basically like, hey, movies, look, I'm here, look at me, I'm a movie too. And then the movie people were like, yeah, okay, well, yeah, we'll adapt you. I don't care what you're about, we're just gonna take the name. They're like, what?
It's funny, when you said that, I thought you meant Until Dawn the movie is almost a movie. I just thought that was funny.
I think it was a double meaning. The way
they never have the really maddening and baffling thing at the same time is that for all the movie people come around and say, well, no, we don't just want to do the game, we want to tell our own story. They very rarely have a story, and there's very rarely do they have one that's actually worth telling. What about this? Was there some pressing need to release to the world? Like, why is this better than the thing you said you didn't want to adapt? At least we say, like, The Last of Us Season 1, where I understand it did deviate from the games, it deviated because they quite clearly had a specific story they wanted to tell, and it was still thematically relevant, it's still tied in, but they wanted to make it, still a very good standalone episode of television that was actually worthwhile existing for its own sake. They had a story to tell. But in almost every other instance where that excuse is trotted out, there's nothing to replace the game. It's just shit.
Well, and then you get the cynical idea, which is impossible to avoid, of, oh, you only wanted the IP's like fame and fans and titles.
That's it. Just wanted money.
Because have a guaranteed audience that you can tap into.
You'll always get like that almost procedural, just, oh yeah, we love the game. Yeah, the game. Yes. The game. Yes, we love the game. Yeah. And then they have to say some bullshit as to why. Same with comics. Oh yeah, I love reading them comics. Oh, we're going to change a couple things. When we adapt it for screen, gotta change a couple things. You're like, I love all of that IP that we are currently mining. I really do. It's my favorite of all the IP.
But we have to change it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they just downplay how much they're going to change it, and that's the idea.
I guess in this case, the thing is that they couldn't, because it was so plainly obvious.
It's not even close.
And I suppose the thing is, though, is that you can kind of see how they might have arrived at what they got from the fact that Until Dawn is technically a video game.
Oh, I can 100%
decided to run with.
There was like some meeting, and then maybe Sandberg himself was like, okay, that game seems shit. What can we do to make something worthwhile out of it? Well, I kind of like the idea of multiple things trying to kill you, and Until Dawn, like they got to make it until dawn, and I like Happy Death Day. I like Groundhog Day.
They're respawning. That's the thing. It's not a thing in Until Dawn. That's a thing in video games.
That's what I mean. There are you can kind of see some DNA, but they've changed so much that it's just completely unrecognizable, I would say.